If you've been watching my channel as far back as when I first started researching lost media, you'll know my opinions have shifted quite a bit when it comes to a few of the categories within the community. Back all those years ago, commercials and promos were one of my least liked categories for how disposable that content felt and how quickly those searches would sometimes end. But that feeling changed with time as it came across more lost commercials from series or networks that I really enjoyed, and it completely changed my view of them. And there's another category that I've been warming up to lately that I also used to heavily dislike, and that's dubs. I always felt like dubs weren't worth finding when the episodes or content within them could still be viewed in other languages. Just find a subtitled version or read summaries of the episodes, then watch them in their native language and that's it. You still retain the same amount of content. However, I've come to realize that dubs are deeper than this, and there is a lot of rare content that either have fascinating backstories or that I can find a nostalgic connection to. For today's video, let's cover some dubs in the most extensive way I have to date, and discuss a few of the most popular and requested ones from the community. If I don't end up mentioning one that you particularly want to find, with this category being so large, there's always room for a sequel video, so feel free to comment your suggestions below. With that said, let's get into the first topic, which takes us to an entire lost dub from one of the world's most popular anime. That anime being none other than Dragon Ball. Now, the Dragon Ball series itself has had a lot of different dubs produced for it over the years, some good and some bad. But generally speaking, these were all made and released without any of the production companies simply sitting on content. However, that is not the case for one well-known English dub of Dragon Ball Z Kai that only became so well-known over the discussions and leaks about it throughout the years. In the early 2010s, rumors claimed that a dubbing company based out of Vancouver, British Columbia called Ocean Productions had begun working on their own English dub of the series to specifically be released in Canada and European television markets, contrary to the Funimation Entertainment dub that was produced in Texas, using voice talents such as Sean Schemmel as Goku, which most people are familiar with. News of this alternate English dub began circulating as early as April 2010, when Sean Schemmel himself revealed its existence in a conversation with a user only known as Sub-Zero Ice, pointing out how bad of a dub it's going to be. Sean stated in part, "As far as I know, the Ocean Group dub is going to have this really bad music, some of which I have heard, and a whole host of added sound effects such as doinks and boinks, and even in one scene where Bulma simply turns her head in a conversation, you hear a whoosh sound a la a bad martial arts movie." At the time, people were skeptical of Sean's claim, and believed he had been misinformed, as according to the credits of the Nicktoons airing of Kai, they only credited Ocean Productions with video editing, nothing about creating any actual dubs themselves. But a few months later, in September of 2010, voice actor Kirby Morrow was interviewed on the podcast Voice Print with Tevra Deval, where it was confirmed Kirby did audition for Goku in a Canadian dub of the show. And throughout the next couple of years, more information came out about it, proving its existence, including listings in databases and more voice actors confirming their involvement with it. The most notable of these coming from Scott McNeil, who was reprising his role as Piccolo from the Funimation dub, stating that the Ocean dub was indeed finished. In 2014, 98 episodes were approved as Canadian content by the Canadian Radio, Television and Telecommunications Commission. So at this point in the timeline, it was pretty clear that the dub did exist, but it remained to be seen, and currently it's unknown if it will ever be released. In July 2018, Toei USA outright stated they had the dub and were looking to license it out to broadcasters, one of which was interested. But before they could get their channel up and going, it closed in 2020, so the Ocean dub was never broadcast, and there has not been any other word from other interested channels. I was wondering at this point if any channel in Canada could just go to Toei and say, "Hey, we want to broadcast this." But it looks like even as early as 2016, 3 years after the dub was claimed to be completed, Vegeta's voice actor Brian Drummond even said that he had no idea what happened to it. This was corroborated by Kerbofer in comments made from around that time too, where he stated, "It was created for a very specific purpose, and that purpose has more or less passed," also mentioning that it's likely to stay in the vault forever. Despite fan petitions, no content from this dub has ever been released, and maybe Toei never actually had intentions of licensing it to Canadian television channels in the first place. It has been even more years since any interest in this completely lost dub was gained, so as of now, there's a pretty high chance this one will actually stay lost forever. The next topic I want to talk about in this video is certainly a strange one, not only with how the show looks so brightly colored and odd, but also for the bizarre rabbit hole of lost dubs that actually exist from it. In the previous video, we talked about a pretty obscure French cartoon called X Duck X that has a lot of its English dubs still missing, but was strangely dubbed into a variety of different languages, most of which have been found. And this show is kinda like that, for the fact that it got so many language dubs, most of which are still lost, but the English one is the rarest of all. This is a show called Pop Secret that I had never heard about until Stario Pastels told me about it. Basically, the plot involves 3 girls who are pop stars by day and secret agents by night, and they have to balance life between the two. But what it might lack in plot, it makes up for in visuals, because it's one of those cartoons that just looks so creepy you can't help but watch it, at least from someone that grew up watching Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network. The colors are really bright, which seems to be one of the show's themes, and the animation is sorta like Angela Anaconda cutout style. But where the lost media comes in with this show is the episodes themselves and where exactly they were even available to begin with. According to the dubbing database, this show received 7 different dubs, including the English one, and ran on a variety of different channels in their countries of origin. However, if you look closely at the channel list for the English dub, you'll notice that it says unknown, and Stario Pastels on the forums says they can only find 1 episode of the English dub online. This allegedly originated from the production company's website, Futuricon, in 2014, without any other kind of episodes posted or release plans stated. I did take a look at their website on the Wayback Machine, but it doesn't really work very well, so I can't confirm that the English episode was actually from 2014, but their current site does have a page where it can be viewed, so it is right there now. There's also a page called Screening Room, which would maybe allow you to view some of the content that was never released from it, if it exists. This relates to a theory I have that maybe 1 episode was dubbed as a way to test the show out like a pilot, and then without any interested buyers, the project was shelved and no other episodes were ever dubbed in English. Though if that 1 episode was really made in 2014 like the claims state, that would have been way after the series was originally created in the mid-2000s. Interestingly, I do recognize their minuscule series from when it aired on Disney Channel back in the mid-2000s, but for the most part, a lot of this company's work is pretty unknown to me. It's also a possibility that this could be another instance like the Ocean dub of Dragon Ball Z Kai, where the dub was completed, or at least more than 1 episode was done, but without anyone wanting to broadcast it, they just shelved the whole thing. Even though this isn't necessarily a show I would be interested in watching, I would love to get answers about its English production, or why only 1 episode can be found. Stario Pastels doesn't even know where else you could go to get more episodes. My only suggestion would be to contact people who were at the company during the time when the show was claimed to be dubbed, around 2014. But who knows how many of those people are even out there, or if they would remember such a seemingly small project that never went anywhere in English countries. The next topic I'd like to talk about is one that most people probably didn't see when it was originally airing, because of how horrendously it was broadcast. But it's gained quite a following in modern times, and is a topic I would like to see resurface, just for the fact that I have some memory of it from back in the day. This topic takes us to Cartoon Network in the mid-2000s, around the time Naruto was in full swing on the channel. Of course, for as successful as that series was, Cartoon Network was importing more and more anime to fill out the schedule. A lot of this was limited to weekly airings on Toonami, but some of it was more obscure, and dumped at times few people would even be watching the channel. This is perhaps why the English dub of the series I Dot and Jump went missing, and is still missing in full to this day. If you happen to wake up at 6 in the morning and turn on the channel, then you could have seen this anime based around kids mountain biking. I'm pretty sure I only knew of its existence after having looked at the TV schedule and seeing the name mentioned, but apparently it was commissioned by Hasbro and ran for 26 episodes before being pulled from the air. The show would also premiere in Canada on YTV a month after its US premiere, and continue there for an additional 10 episodes, past where it was pulled from Cartoon Network. However, the entire Japanese series was 52 episodes, and it's not known if only 36 were dubbed or if the whole series was dubbed and the rest just never broadcast anywhere. But that's not even where the lost media comes in for this series, as that stems from the desire to archive all of those original 36 episodes that were broadcast. There is a list in the Lost Media Wiki article for this topic that documents which ones have been found and which ones haven't been, with a decent amount of them having been resurfaced up to episode 17. From there to the end of the known dub of the series, the remaining ones are all missing, which makes finding them especially difficult, as the final 10 only aired in Canada, as I mentioned before, so US recordings wouldn't exist. There is also a mention that in the late 2000s, a series of clips and even full episodes were available to stream on Hasbro's website, but that was shut down in 2009, and the series hasn't been released at all since then. If the show wasn't aired so early in the morning, there's a greater chance it could have gained more of a following, or at least given a greater chance for more episodes to have been saved in some capacity. However, the dub that aired on Cartoon Network and YTV is not the only dub the series ever got, as a second English dub exists and was aired on Animax Asia a couple years after the original in North America. But this dub is even rarer than that of its American counterpart. Animax Asia dubs have always been really elusive for the fact that the channel maintains broadcast rights, but not home media distribution rights, so most Animax dubs are never released afterwards, and it leaves home recordings of the original broadcasts as the only way for content to resurface. Again, according to the Lost Media Wiki article, there were a bunch of clips that were uploaded to YouTube by fans at one point, though most of these are still viewable on the website, except for one, which was claimed by MTV India. I'm not sure who actually owns the rights to this show anymore, but unless a company like Discotek Media can get their hands on the license, it's pretty unlikely this one will ever officially be re-released again. Now it's time to talk about a topic that I have mentioned before, but it's gotten so popular within the people who search for 4Kids dubs that it's worth mentioning again, and there's even a little bit of an update on the progress of the search too. This topic is none other than the English dub of F-Zero GP Legend that was produced by 4Kids in the early 2000s. Back when I covered this topic in my original video, there were still a lot of unknown details about the dub and a little misunderstanding that has since been cleared up. Blue Baron has spent a lot of time researching this series, and the majority of this information comes from them, giving us a better idea of what exactly is still missing and how the remaining episodes could be found. F-Zero GP Legend debuted in Japan in October 2003 and ended in September 2004, running for 51 episodes. Soon after the series ended in Japan, it premiered in the US and only ran for 15 episodes, before being pulled from the schedule and never seen on US television again. This abrupt cancellation left fans wondering how many of those original 51 episodes were dubbed, or if there were any more episodes beyond the 15 that were simply left unaired due to it being pulled. A few years ago, I had asked David Wills, who voiced Captain Falcon, about this exactly, to which he replied with something along the lines of the rest of the series was never aired, and at the time, I believe this suggested that every episode of the original 51 count was dubbed in English and just never released. However, Blue Baron has come to some new conclusions, beginning with the actual episode count. Contrary to what I believed David Wills suggested, he didn't actually mean that all 51 episodes were dubbed by 4Kids, and rather when he said the entire series, he meant the entire 4Kids adaptation of the series, which totals 26 episodes, not 51. Blue Baron also informs me that if you convert that to a Japanese episode count, it only reaches up to Japanese episode 35, as the English adaptation skipped some entirely. And this means there is still some content in the Japanese version that was never adapted to English. But the search gets even more interesting from here. Even though we're sure the 4Kids dub only reached 26 episodes, the series was pulled after only having aired 15, leaving the remaining 11 lost and never aired. As for the aired episodes, all of those have been found, but the last part of the series is what we need to find. Like I said, they've never been broadcast or released onto home media, so the question becomes, how exactly is anyone supposed to find those? But we have a lead. According to a comment left on the Lost Media Wiki article for this topic, user EchoFox posted a link to a schedule archive from TVNZ2, showing that the series was aired in New Zealand back in 2007. This would be the English dub of the series, of which 4Kids is the only one that exists, and based on the air cycle of episodes being 2 each week, it would suggest the series ran for its entire 26-episode run. If anyone from New Zealand remembers watching the series on TV or happened to record some of the episodes, this might be the only way to archive 16 through 26 and complete the series, as there would be no other way to get them with the exception of an official release. But it seems very unlikely an official release would happen, given the current state of the F-Zero franchise and how the anime itself hasn't been acknowledged in decades. However, if you want a taste of the 4Kids dub of these episodes that are still lost, believe it or not, they have all resurfaced from Hungary, as a Hungarian dub was made based off of the 4Kids adaptation. But of course it's not in English, so we don't have an audio track of that language. We can only see the visuals and how 4Kids changed those. The original English dub remains missing, but with enough searching it's possible these might get found, though it isn't known if reruns aired at all during the New Zealand broadcast, or if their airtime stayed the same throughout the entire series run. And finally, this topic is a bit of a surprising entry because I never would have guessed that it gained even the little traction that it did, especially when part of that was even from the Japanese side of the community. Now, I'm not super involved with Disney Channel related lost media, but I've come across a lot of the cartoons they aired on the main channel as well as Disney XD before. This topic in particular relates to Motor City, a short-lived car-themed show that didn't even last a year on the channel as a result of being mishandled, so it's been said. The plot is sorta about a rebellious band of drivers who protect Motor City from evil forces. The art style always looked cool, so it's stuck in my head for all these years. And would you believe that for as short-lived as this show was in the US, it somehow still got other dubs, notably one from Japan, which is entirely lost. According to Burner for Eva, who seems to be one of the leading forces behind the effort, the Japanese dub has remained one of the most desired for the fact that it's been missing for over 10 years. Originally, some promos and clips from the dub were uploaded online, including the intro, but over the years even those have disappeared. It was even believed for a time that only a couple episodes from the entire series were dubbed at all, until Burner for Eva found an archived list from a Japanese blog that detailed every episode along with a handful of air dates for when they premiered in Japan. However, it was later discovered that even in Japan, the series was quite difficult to watch as confirmed by user Cope40, and when contacted, they claimed they couldn't provide much information, but strangely, did post a DVD case that shows all of the episodes on the back side. At first I thought this was some kind of official limited release, and we would just have to find the DVD to get all the episodes. But upon closer evaluation, it looks very much like a custom, which led me to question if the episodes were ripped to a DVD for this homemade set, and if that's the case, why couldn't Cope40 give them to Burning Forever? That's never addressed in any of the mentions of him, so maybe he was either afraid to give out the whole show, or he doesn't actually have the episodes and just made a case for fun. Either way, there was another Japanese user that resurfaced named Samurai Sky, who also mentioned that the show was not promoted or advertised well, feeding into the claim that it was difficult to watch, and that it never got any home media releases, completely confirming Cope40's case is a custom. There are no uploads of the show that can be found on Japanese video websites as of now, and it's probably going to come down to home recordings to get it found, which are probably so few if the show wasn't really popular to begin with. I'm still surprised it was dubbed in its entirety or released outside of the US at all. Another dub was discovered to exist as well. This led to a secondary piece of lost Motor City content, which involved a possible Korean dub of the show, as a translated logo was found, along with a game that might have been exclusive to Korea as well. So far, no other content related to the Korean version has resurfaced, so getting that dub seems like it'll be even more of a challenge than the Japanese one. But right now, it's not clear if the show was actually dubbed, or if it was only planning on being dubbed and then never actually produced. I also went to the dubbing database to see if there was any more insight about the Japanese dub, and discovered that the series actually exists in 10 different languages, with English and Korean not even being on this list. So in total, if the Korean one was made, that means the series has 12 versions out there, and that's just so wild to me. According to the chart, it seems like it primarily aired on international Disney XD channels, but there are a couple in the list that were not Disney branded where it aired. Even though the show is pretty obscure, and it's going to be very difficult getting any of its lost dubbed episodes found, I do think the rabbit hole in itself is very fascinating, and it's just one example across the huge world of lost dubs to explore. The dubbing database is a great resource to discover if a show you watched growing up had some kind of obscure international release, and I'm always surprised with what I find. Not to mention any episodes that could end up being completely lost, like in Motor City's case. Like I mentioned before, if there are any other dubs you'd like me to cover in a sequel video, and I do already have some more requests for those topics, feel free to leave a comment. This is a fun community and international driven effort to preserve all sorts of productions from around the world that would otherwise become lost and forgotten about. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Be sure to check out some of my other Lost Media videos. Thanks for watching, and until next time, Finn.